Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard series. Today we have the easy peasy video, so to speak, which is Gear Chronicle GB8. Probably the most showcased GB8 since they even showed it on the show. I don't think they've showed any of the other GB8s on the show, actually, but yeah, we're showcasing the Gear Chronicle GB8 today, which is Beyond Order Dragon. A couple announcements to make. Next week on Saturday is going to be the Wasteland $500 tournament. So for those of you who need details on that, be sure to reach out to me, message me about it, and I will be happy to give you details because we're trying to pump the tournament numbers up as much as possible. So definitely if you're in the surrounding states as well, feel free to come out and be inside of a big money tournament. But with that being said, let's get right into the video. So we're going to unflip all our G cards first. You guys know them, you know what they do. You fight it enough. I think I fought someone and they said like, meta sheep makes me weep or something like that. I don't know. It's pretty funny. But getting right into our grade 3s, we have 6 grade 3s. We run 4 Chronojet Dragon G. What Chronojet Dragon G does is it is the new Chronojet Dragon from G Next era. During your turn, for every 2 face-up cards in your G zone, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, and then all of your Zodiac Time Beasts get plus 1,000 power for every card or every 2 cards face-up in your G zone. So this card rewards you for striding more and more and more and more and more and unflipping more and more and more cards. And this card gets more and more powerful as it synchronizes with Chrono Dragon Next Stage and Gear Groovy, which switches to this attacking after them. So yeah, it's kind of like a restander skill. Its second ability is a Time Leap skill. And it says during your turn, when your Gear Dragon or Zodiac Time Beast strides, you can choose up to 1 card from your hand, call it to Rearguard Circle, and then you can choose one of your Rearguards and Time Leap it. So what Time Leap is, for those of you who don't know what it is by some chance, is Time Leap is the keyword for Gear Chronicle. So Time Leap is basically when you select a unit, you bind that unit, and then you search your deck for a grade that's +1 higher than the grade that you time leapt, and then you call it to the board. And then at the end of the turn, that same unit goes back to the deck, and then you get the card back from the bind zone that you used to time leap it. So it's basically like a great toolbox mechanic. Allows you to get whatever you need out of your deck at any time, as long as you have the grade under it in your hand, which most likely you will. And yeah, just overall, very, very good keyword. Then we have 1 Chronofang Tiger G. What Chronofang Tiger G does is if your Generation Break 1, at the end of the battle this unit attacked a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your other rearguards and bind it. If you do, your opponent chooses choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as this unit. So column is up and down, don't forget about that, guys. But you choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as this unit, and your opponent has to put that unit on the bottom of their deck. So it's a great control option. It does bind cards, so it allows you to get off cards like Chronodran for extra attacks, or Water for more cards in your hand. And overall, it's just a great control option if you actually need to control your opponent. We run 1 Steam Maiden Emmy. So we ran Steam Maiden Emmy because of the way that she works with the Delayed Blazer loop. We never really got to use her in as intended in the playtest, so it wasn't really a big thing. But basically, if you were to have like an Emmy out, and let's say you had an Emmy out and a grade 2 History Maker, then and a TikTok worker, you could attack with, or actually, let's say that you had a grade 2, right? So let's say that you have like a Calibum. You attack with Calibum, then you attack with History Maker, you time leap into Emmy. Emmy attacks, and then use TikTok Worker to time leap it into the Delayed Blazer, since it's a grade 1. And then you choose your other History Maker, and you put into like a Chronofang Tiger G or something. So it allows you for a lot of extra attacks when you're able to get it off properly. Its 2 abilities are Number one, as I was saying, when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, you can have this unit gain -2 grade, so you can have it turn into a grade 1, which is very, very good. And it's the main reason that we run it. The second ability is useful as well because it allows us to hit Vanguards without boosting. It's when this unit attacks a Vanguard, this unit gets plus 4,000 power until the end of the battle, so it becomes a 14k attacker by itself, so it's pretty good. Then we have 4 History Maker. I think you all know what this card does. It's amazing, one of the best cards in Gear Chronicle. When this card attacks a Vanguard, so you just have to attack a Vanguard. Like, you don't have to boost like the other cards, so it's good like that. But when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, and if you do, you choose one of your other units and you time leap it. So what ends up happening is you use this for the Mellum attack combo, where Mellum attacks, and what Mellum does is goes down to a grade 0 after she attacks. So you go down into Water, and then you attack with the History Maker, and you time leap Water back into a Mellum, so that you get an extra attack, and then Water also gets to let you draw cards and filter your hand when it's bound. So you're able to get effects off of that. So really good card. We ran 4 Calibum in this build, just because we really want to control our opponent in the early game. What Calibum does is when it's placed on the rearguard circle, you choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and that opponent has to put back that unit to their deck and search their deck for up to 1 card that's a grade less than that unit and call it to rearguard circle. So what ends up happening is we use this to get rid of people's starters. So if you select their starter, a grade less than their starter is -1, which technically doesn't exist, so they don't get a card back when you use it on a grade 0. If you use it on a grade 1, they can choose if they want to get a grade 0 or not. A 2, they can choose to get a 1, and a 3, they can choose to get a 2, and so on and so forth. So a lot of times if you have extras of these in your hand and you really want to get rid of a card on the field, like it's really important, you can Calibum it until it's like a -1 for your opponent, until it's non-existent for them. But usually you only have to Calibum once to get an important card that's hindering you out of the way. Do be careful though, because when you Calibum someone, you can get them into like a better card that they want. I know in Luard, if you go for a grade 2, like I will get any grade 1 that I want. So it's like good and bad. You pretty much only want to use it on the starter, or any grade 0 that's on the board that's hindering you. We have 3 Delayed Blazer Dragon. What Delayed Blazer Dragon does is when your other unit is placed on the rearguard circle from your deck via Time Leap, if you have a Chronojet Vanguard, this unit gets plus 2,000. So, and then its other ability is when your unit is placed on rearguard, or when this unit is placed on Vanguard or rearguard. If you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, you choose one of your grade 2 rearguards and you Time Leap it. So what ends up happening is you attack with Mellum. Like let's say that you have a TikTok worker on the board. You attack with Mellum, then you attack with History Maker, go back into Mellum, and then you attack with Mellum, and then you TikTok worker, and you go into you go into Delayed Blazer, and then Delayed Blazer will target History Maker and Time Leap into a grade 3. Whether you need that grade 3 to be Emmy or Chrono Fang Tiger G, doesn't really matter, it depends on the situation, but then this card will get plus 2k because of the grade 3 being called via Time Leap. So it becomes 11k attacker. A lot of 11k attacks in this deck. Very good. So we run 4 Stride Fighter, the regular one, pretty self-explanatory. 4 unflip PGs. We go through a lot of counterblasts in this deck. We do run only 3 Mellums. So what Mellum does, like I said earlier, is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if it gains, or you may choose to have it gain 4,000 power or not, which most of the time you are going to choose to have it gain 4,000 power, and then at the end of the turn, it goes back to your deck, and you get to search your deck for up to 1 grade 0, and call it as rest, and then shuffle your deck. So this allows you to call out things like Heart Thump Worker, or Water, Gear Cat, usually Gear Cat first, so that you can prepare for your opponent in a defensive way. But also, you don't have to search out a grade 0, which means if you happen to just have like draws and heals left in your deck, you don't have to search anything. And then it'll also, like if you're about to deck out, like you can attack with 2 Mellums and then attack with your Vanguard to make sure that you don't deck out, which is pretty solid. We have 2 Takeaway Dragon. Takeaway Dragon, this card's busted. When your other unit is placed on rearguard due to an effect from one of your time leap abilities, you choose up to one card from your drop zone and put it to the bottom. So basically, this card allows you to endlessly recycle like pretty much everything, because when you place a unit by time leap, you get to put a unit to the bottom, and then when the unit that you time leapt comes back, you also get a proc from tick away and get to put a card back. So for every time leap, you get to put back 2 cards, essentially. So it's very, very good. We run 1 Mesh Kia in case we have to time leap into a grade 1 that we don't want to lose the grade 0 for it. But what Mesh Kia does is when it's placed on the rearguard circle from the deck using time leap, which is pretty much the only way that we're going to place it ever, you get to rest this unit, and if you do, you draw a card, and then you choose another unit, and it gets plus 4,000 power until the end of the turn. So it's pretty good when you use it on History Maker, like in case you happen to check a Gear Cat. Not very likely that you'll check a Gear Cat because you don't want to check Air Water, you want it in your deck, and then checking Gear Cat, we only have one other stand in this deck, so kind of unlikely. We run Chronojet as our starter, as TikTok Worker is banned as a starting Vanguard. So what Chronojet does is it's a pretty amazing card. Allows you, when you get to stride and you time leap it, it allows you a free stride fodder for the next turn. So when this unit is put into the bind zone from rearguard circle, you can put this card into the soul, and then you get to choose. Search your deck for 1 grade 3 Chronojet card, and then you call it to rearguard circle, and then at the end of that turn, that grade 3 Chronojet card bounces to your hand. So not only do you get a grade 1 out of it from time leaping it, but you also get a Chronojet Dragon G that will bounce to your hand, and then you get to attack with it as well. So pretty solid card. TikTok Worker, this card is absolutely busted. I remember when it was at more than 1. It was pretty ridiculous. I played this deck during that time. So what TikTok Worker does is at the end of the battle that your other rearguard attacked, any rearguard attacked, whether it attacks Vanguard or rearguard, you can shove into the soul, and then you time leap the unit that attacked. So what this does is it makes for really, really good setup combos with like Mellum and Air Water, all this stuff. But when you do it with Mellum, you actually get a grade 2 and a grade 0, because you get the grade 2 from time leap and the grade 0 from Mellum skill, because Mellum skill will still proc. That's how the ruling works on it. So it's pretty good. Sets up for your combos with Delayed Blazer and all kinds of cool stuff, like if you don't have cards to use. So then we have 4 Heart Thump Worker. It is the Chronojet, shove into the soul, crit, draw a card, plus 5,000. We run a vanilla Zodiac Time Beast trigger, because we do, in this build, run Alter Dragon. So in case we could not stride efficiently, we can just, you know, counterblast 1 and get rid of one of these to do it. So then we have 1 Air Water. Air Water is limited to 1, so we only run 1. When this card is put into the bind zone from your rearguard circle, you can put it to the bottom of your deck, draw 2 cards, and then choose a card from your hand and return it to your deck. So you not only do you +1 when you use this, but you get to filter out your hand and put triggers back to your deck. So it's a very, very good card. Then we have 1 Vanguard Gear Cat. I know here it says Gear Cat with a Simple Dream, but that's not its English name. So Vanguard Gear Cat, when your opponent's rearguard is put into their deck due to an effect from one of our cards, we get to choose one of our units, and then that unit gets plus 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So what this does is when we end up using Header around on our opponent's turn to make them return a unit to their deck and shuffle and call a unit, we still returned a unit to their deck. So we get to shove the Vanguard Gear Cat back into the deck and give our Vanguard plus 10,000 for the end of the till the end of the turn, which makes for a really good defensive plays. Then we run 4 Chronodoge Sheep. It is our Zodiac Time Beast draw trigger. Nothing really to say about that. We did run 5 draw, so we ran 1 Lucky Pot Draco Kid. This card shoves itself into Soul and gives the Gear Chronicle plus 3,000 power, so it is a Margot clone. Then we have 4 Chronotherapy Hamster. It is our Zodiac Time Beast heal. Pretty simple and straightforward. Moving on to our Stride Zone, we have 2 Chrono Dragon Gear Groovy. So Gear Groovy is what helps you pretty much reach beyond order by like the 2nd turn or the 3rd turn if you really want to. So basically what Gear Groovy does is It has two abilities, its Generation Break 2 ability and its Generation Break 3 ability. Its Generation Break 2 ability says that if you have a heart card with Chronojet in its name, you can flip a Gear Groovy from your G-Zone face up, and then you get to choose the auto ability of 2 face-up Gear Dragons from your G-Zone, and this unit gains those abilities. So basically the only 2 cards in our G-Zone with auto abilities that are Gear Dragons are Chrono Dragon Next Stage and Panglong, or Huanglong in English. So basically when Gear Groovy gets used, it gets to be Next Stage and Huanglong combined into one. So it's a very, very solid card. It also like simultaneously unflips a lot of cards in your G-Zone. So then its Generation Break 3 ability, which we usually use, is Soul Blast 1 and choose a card from your G-Zone and turn it face up, and this unit gets plus 5,000 power. So you're not really doing it for the plus 5,000 power so much as you're doing it to either flip whichever one of these is not flipped, whether it be Panglong or Chrono Dragon Next Stage, so that you can use the ability. But do be aware that you have to be Generation Break 3 to do it. So don't go into this card when like you've only strode 1 card or something. Probably after a Warp Drive turn would be solid, but even then, after a Warp Drive turn, you can only flip one of these because the flip skill is once per turn. So pretty much go into Gear Groovy like if you, I don't know, use Next Stage as your first stride or something, then you can go into Gear Groovy second turn and flip Huanglong. So then we have 3 Chrono Dragon Next Stage. So the reason that we run 3, even though it flips itself in its ability, is because it flips one when it uses itself, and then the other one comes from Gear Groovy using it and flipping it for its ability. So do be aware of that. But its Generation Break 2 ability is at the end of the battle of this unit attack to Vanguard, if you have a heart with Chronojet Dragon in its name, you can counterblast 1, flip a Next Stage in your G-Zone, and then choose 3 cards and discard them, and then this card goes back to your G-Zone, and you stand one of your Vanguards. So basically this card goes back to your G-Zone after the attack, and then you're attacking with Chronojet G, which is what I was discussing before with Chronojet G gaining power and giving power to your Zodiac Time Beast rear guards. It's very, very solid. It's like a restand mechanic. It doesn't get stopped by cards that stop restanders because it's not really a restander. It's like a new unit attacking. So very, very good card. Mostly used as like a finisher type pressure card in this deck. We run 2 Warp Drive Dragon. So what Warp Drive Dragon does is it has a time leap skill that says Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 during your main phase, and you can choose a card from your G-Zone and you may turn it face up, which means that it is optional, so you don't always have to turn a card face up. But usually we want to flip itself over because it's like we usually use it as first stride. So we want to turn itself face over, and then we choose the same number of rear guards as face up Warp Drive Dragons in our G-Zone, then we time leap them, and then we choose one of our opponent's rear guards with a grade equal then or less to the number of cards we time leaped, and that opponent puts that unit on the bottom of their deck. So let's say that we time leap 2 units, then we get to select a grade 2 on our opponent's field or lower and make them send it back to their deck. Very good setup card when you're on first stride turn. Then we have 1 Meta Pulsar Panglong. Panglong is good if you start with a double Melum combo play, which you guys will see in one of my games, I'm pretty sure. But what this unit does is at the end of the battle of this unit attack to Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, and if you do, choose a face-up grade 1 or greater card from your bind zone, and you can put it into your hand or call it to your rear guard circle. So this allows you to get cards back from your bind zone. Like, you can even save it sometimes until after Beyond Order, and then after you use Beyond Order, you can get back some of the cards that you bound. But this is our GB8, Interdimensional Dragon, Beyond Order Dragon. And what it does is Generation Break 8, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and bind 8 cards from the top of your deck. And then after the original battle phase of this turn, you perform an additional main phase and a battle phase. And until the end of the turn, this unit gets, at the beginning of your main phase, stand this unit, and it gets -1 drive check. So basically, you go from draw phase to ride phase to main phase to battle phase, and then after all your stuff in battle phase, Beyond Order restands because you go back to a main phase. So it's like adding like a Yu-Gi-Oh mechanic. So you go to main phase 2, and then you get to play more cards, and then you get to go into a battle phase 2 and attack more, and then it gets -1 drive check during the second battle phase, and then you end your turn. So ultimately, it's like a big plus. The only thing I don't like about it is the binding top 8 cards of your deck, because most of the time you cannot get them back in this build. So there is that. We do run one Meta Pulsar Alter Dragon. What Alter Dragon does is it has 2 abilities, but we're really only using it for 1 in this deck. So what Alter Dragon's first ability is the ability that we're using it for, which is the cost for this card's stride may also be paid with Counterblast 1 and choosing a Gear Colossus or Zodiac Time Beast card from your hand and binding it. So if we do not have a stride fodder, because we only run 6 grade 3s and 4 stride fodders in this deck, if we happen to have a grade 3 but we don't have a stride fodder, we can just Counterblast 1 and bind a Zodiac Time Beast card in our hand from the game, and then literally we'll just be able to get it. And if that card happens to be something like, I don't know, Chronojet Dragon G or something like that, like most of the time it won't be, because you would just use it to stride into a normal stride at that point. But we usually use it on our triggers. Like if we have a handful of triggers, just go into Alter Dragon doing it. And then we have one Breeze in case our opponent tries to screw us over. Then we have one Faraway Time Maiden Urlu as our G guards. We have one Urlu, one Rapana, one Old Urlu, and 2 Hetero rounds. So what new Urlu does is it is our Fighters Collection G Guardian from the new Fighters Collection where the GB8 came out. And then this unit's ability is when it's placed on the guard circle, you can Counterblast 1 and choose a G Guardian from your G zone and turn it face up. If you do, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield for every card face up in your G zone. So it's basically, like in most cases, a no pass for your opponent, because usually you have so many cards flipped by the time they attack you with something that big that will warrant you using the new Urlu, that it's basically a no pass. You have one Highbrow Steam Rapana. This card is super good, one of my favorite cards in Gear Chronicle. When this card is placed on guard circle, you can choose a grade 1 or greater card on your rear guard circle and then return it to your deck. And if you do, you get one grade 0 card, call it to rear guard circle, and then if you called a card, this unit gets plus 10,000 shield. So what happens is you get to get rid of useless cards. Like in the early game, if I have Calibum on the field, I can get rid of Calibum and call it Water, which sets me up for next turn's time leaps in place. We do run one Old Urlu. What Old Urlu does is when it's placed on the Guardian Circle, you can choose one normal unit, meaning a non-trigger unit, and then a trigger unit from your drop zone, and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. And if 2 cards were put, then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So you use this to like recycle your triggers and recycle your takeaways usually, because takeaway usually does the rest of the work as far as recycling. So we only have to run one Urlu. And then we run 2 Hetero Round Dragon because it is not limited to 1 in English, but it is in Japan. And so we run 2 Hetero Round. What Hetero Round does is when it's placed on the guard circle, if we have a Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, then we can Soul Blast 1. So it's also good for filtering out our soul when we have cards like Takeaway and Heart Thump that go into the soul. But when this card's placed on the Guardian Circle, if you have a Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, you can Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards. That opponent shuffles that rear guard into their deck, and then they look at the top card of their deck after shuffling, and then call whatever that card is to rear guard circle. So this card's like really, really crucial because sometimes it can mess up your opponent's really big plays. And then it also gets you off Vanguard Gearcat, like I was discussing before in the earlier parts of the deck profile. So we're opening up our Cardfight area here again so that we can get right into the games. So we're loading Chronojet GB8 1. So our first game we played against what looks to be Narukami. They're running the grade 3 starter, so I didn't really know what they were playing. So we just ride a Meshkia, and then we end our turn. He attacks us, we no guard, and then we damage check a History Maker. We call Calibum, getting rid of his starter. So he puts his starter to the drop zone, but he is supposed to shuffle into the deck, so I told him to shuffle into the deck. He did. And then we attacked with Calibum 8 to his 6, and then we attacked for 14, and we checked a critical trigger. So we deal him 2 damage, and so we're already on a really good start already. So we guard with 2 10Ks his attack so that we won't take any damage during his turn. And then we call a TikTok so that it can boost. And then we attack with Vanguard and we check a heal trigger, but we do not heal because we are way far ahead of him in damage. He goes into Conquest and flips, but I was unsure of why he did that. But we used Raphanna to get a grade 0. Then we took the Vanguard. He doesn't check any triggers, so we take a damage, and then he attacks us for 12, and we take a damage there as well. So we stride into next stage since we did G-Guard, and then we get to go into next stage. So it's like really early pressure. We're attacking him for 11, and then attack him for 14, getting another Melon back from the time leap, and getting more cards to our hand. Then we attack him for 11 again, use TikTok to get a... I also forgot to get the grade 0 here, which is kind of crappy, but we do use Delayed Blazer to time leap, and he cannot basically do anything because he has no cards in his hand, so he has to take the second Vanguard attack. We didn't check anything on there too, and then he checks a critical. So since he's running Vermilion, when our cards come back from time leap, we can place them anywhere, so we place them in the back row so that they won't be attacked into by Vermilion. So he Vermilion Legions as we expected, and then he attacks us for 11. We guard that, and then he attacks us for 22. We no guard, and he checks a draw trigger, and when we check a heal so we don't have to take any more damage for the rest of the turn. Then we're going into Gear Groovy. So we time leap Chronojet into Takeaway, and then we use Chronojet to get a grade 3 Chronojet that's sitting behind our Vanguard. So we use the Soul Blast skill of Gear Groovy to flip up Huanglong, and then we use Gear Groovy to have it gain the skills of both. So then we attack him for Melum and attack him with History Maker, and then he just takes it for game because there's so many more attacks coming after that that there's really no point in him attempting to even continue. But we continued going for the attacks just to see what we would have gotten. So we would have counter busted 1, flipped to next stage, and discarded 3. And then our Vanguard would have been at 26k. We would have been swinging. We would have got our draw trigger. And then our Melon would have attacked for 21. So even if he had checked a 6 damage heal, like, it would have been really, really hard for him to recover at that point. Like, almost impossible, in my opinion. And that's kind of like the thing with Gears. Like, it either beats you into the ground, or Gears is in, like, a bad spot, in my opinion, where you have to, like, be in recovery mode. Loading the Chronojet GB8 2 game. We're playing in Shadowpaladin this time. I thought that it was Luard, which it is. But I think something unfortunate to him happened this game, if I remember correctly. But he did get a draw trigger, so that's pretty good. And then he got a crit on his first stride check, so that's pretty good. We check a draw, and then we're able to call 2 cards, 2 History Makers. Then we attack his Vanguard and attack his Vanguard again. We don't check any triggers. He's not 3 damage. He rides Luard and calls a card to boost his Morfessa. And then he uses his starter. And I told him that he has to discard a normal unit. So he does discard a normal unit. Then he attacks 9 to my rear. I block it just to see if it'll bait him into attacking it again, because we don't really need it. So we do have to G-assist. And then, so this is the game where it was unfortunate for us, actually. So we G-assisted and whiffed. And then we attacked his Vanguard. And then we checked the heal trigger, so thankfully we went down in damage. We guard, and we guard again to flex him again. And then this time he checks a double critical on us. So we take 3 damage. None of those being grade 3, so I thought that we would draw one for sure. And then we G-assisted for grade 3 again and whiffed again. So pretty much at this point, like, I accepted that I lost, but I just played the cards just to see if I would heal off my Vanguard check, because that might put us back in the game in some way, shape, or form, because it doesn't seem like he runs the breeze. But we did use Calibum accidentally on his grade 2, forgetting about Blackwing Swordbreaker, and he put Blackwing Swordbreaker out from the field and Soul Blasted 1 and drew a card. So we really just gained him advantage, and then we checked a grade 3, which I was like, oh man, you're so late, Chronojet Dragon. You're so late, Chronojet. But yeah, we can't guard all of the attacks, so we just decide to take it, and our 6 damage is a draw trigger, so we lost that game indefinitely. Wasn't much that we could do. Like, that's another thing with Gear Chronicle that I feel like with this particular build is, like, you either get the right ratios to ride and stride, and then you're good for the rest of the game, or you're really struggling when it comes to that point. Because like if you don't get a grade 3 and you have to G-assist or something, sometimes you can be fine, but a lot of times it's like not ideal. So heading into our next game, we're playing into what I thought to be Luard again, but it's actually not Luard. It's like Claret Sword / Blaster Dark Diablo. A lot of people have been getting this like Claret Sword craze since like the new support, even though the new support's not on area yet. So I don't know why they're doing it really, but yeah. So he attacks us for 10. He does check a critical. We check a critical, and our Lishma is gone. We draw into our water. We check a stand and a draw trigger, so we're able to just draw some cards off of that. He goes into Aurageyser Doomed here, calls 2 cards, and we intercept with Calibum since we no longer need it. Its services required are no longer required, really. But he checks 3 cards, none of them are triggers. We take a damage, which is a History Maker, and then we stride into Huanglong. So we use Chronojet G skill to Time Leap Mellum, Chronojet Dran G into Mellum. We actually change it out for our water so that we can get more cards from our hand. And then we play another Mellum and a booster, so I'll show you guys this combo. So you attack 11 with the first Mellum, then you call TikTok Worker, and then you attack with the other Mellum. Use TikTok to Time Leap it, and you get a grade 2 and a grade 0. So you get History Maker and water. So you Time Leap, then you draw your cards, then we attack for 11 again, and we get a grade 0. And this is because we're on Huanglong, basically, is we check a draw trigger, and then we get to Counterboss 1 and call the Mellum to the field and attack with it, which allows us to call another grade 0. So he goes into Phantom Blaster Diablo, retires one of our cards, uses Giva to Counterboss 1, discard 1, and draw 2. And then he plays 3 cards to the field, I guess assuming that he wants to get me for game. But he can't really get me because I have 2 rear guards. So I take his first damage, he retires 3, and then I retire 2 so that I'm able to guard it. And then I PG and he checks no triggers. And then pretty much here I go into next stage, and it's like pretty much GG already. But I attack for 11, he takes it, and that ends up being the game. And so usually we play 3 games on my channel and then we're done. But we decided to play a 4th game since that the game that we just played didn't showcase the GB8, which is the whole point of our build. So we got a Chronojet GB804 game. This time we're playing against Shadows yet again. Same guy, I'm pretty sure. So we ride, he rides, he attacks. We check a Calibum. At first, I didn't have a grade 2, so I stayed on grade 1 for a turn just to see if I would get it, and I did. So I also get a draw trigger. So I attack him. When I ride to grade 2, I get a crit. So we're at equal damage, and he has to G-assist to get a grade 2. And he gets it. So I came up with something during this game that I think is going to be my catchphrase, but it's like crit for a crit makes the whole world lit. Get on that catchphrase train, guys. But we attack with Chronojet G. When we ride it, we check a grade 3 and a draw trigger. He does go into Aurageyser as his first play, and he uses Claret Sword to call a Blackwing Swordbreaker, and then he calls 2 Claret Sword crits. So we guard with 5, and then we guard with 5. And then he puts both the Claret Sword crits into his soul, draws 2 cards, and then uses Aurageyser skill to get 2 more cards, and then his drive check to get 3 more cards. So his hand's pretty beefy right now, but thankfully we're Gear Chronicle, and we can, you know, make things happen as far as that. So since we have a Mellum and a History Maker in our hand already, we Time Leap Dran into a TikTok or a Takeaway Dragon. We use Warp Drive Dragon skill to Counterboss 1, Soul Blast 1, and then we Time Leap the trigger into a Meshkia. So we put one of his cards to the bottom, and then we put a draw trigger from our drop zone to our deck, and then we draw a card thanks to Meshkia. So then we attack him for 20. He guards, and then we draw more cards, filter our hand more. Then we attack for 26. He PGs. We check a stand trigger and a heal trigger, so we are able to attack with that. And then beyond that, we are able to, he G-guards and he doesn't use the skill. So I found it as a perfect opportunity to go into Chrono Fang Tiger G, and then after the attack we Soul Blast one and we get rid of our Mesh Kia, and then we make him put his card to the bottom because shadows need their resources. So then we bounce the Chronojet to our hand from G. And this whole time we're also putting cards back from our takeaway dragon that's on the board. But he uses Vanguard skill to counterboss 1 and destroy 3. So he destroys the starter that counts as 3, and then he checks 2 grade 0 or lowers, so he does pop our field. And we G-guard into the Urlu, that makes it a 3 to pass. He does take a critical, putting on his rear guard, and then he checks nothing else of value. So he attacks with the crit column, and then attacks us for the regular one. We take it, then we stride into next stage. We do time leap the card in our hand, the water, into a Melum. And then we put down a History Maker, and we put down a Rishima, so that we can go for a lot of attacks this turn. So I attack him for 11, then I attack him for 13 using History Maker skill to time leap into Melum, drawing 2 cards. And the reason I decided to put back Delayed Blazer here is because we need at least 1 in our deck for this combo that I'm about to do. So I attacked, get to call a grade 0 off of it. Then I attack with next stage, and I shove both the crits into the soul for 43 to make sure that he PGs it. We check a critical trigger and a draw trigger. So what we're doing is we are soul blasting 1, discarding 1, and then calling a Delayed Blazer, and then time leaping the History Maker into Chrono Fang, which also is going to allow us to get rid of his grade 3. So pretty solid. Our Vanguard gets plus 15, and then Chrono Fang Tiger G gets 3k. So we do check a draw trigger, giving it to Chrono Fang. And then we attack his Vanguard. We use the skill to Soul Blast 1 and bind 1, and then put the card in the same column to the bottom. Here he strides. And so I made sure that he couldn't Phantom Blast or Diablo me here, because he doesn't even have 3 rear guards to be able to do it. So he does call Night Sky Eagle off of Claret Sword, and then he calls the grade 1 from his hand. He uses the Vanguard skill to counterboss 1, give his Vanguard plus 10,000 to crit. I do PG, and I unflip. He does check a heal, which allows us to showcase a little bit more of like what's coming in the next turn. But then when he attacks with his last column, I use double G guard because I noticed how low the cards in my deck were if I'm about to do the GB8. So I was setting up for that for the next turn. Then we do stride into the GB8. So we play tick away, we time leap into a tick away, and then we put back a card, and then we get 2 cards and put 1 back. So we're able to just play a field, and then we use our GB8 ability to counterboss 1, Soul Blast 1, and then bind the top 8 cards of our deck. So with that, we only have 3 cards left in our deck. So right here, I took like a while figuring out what those 3 cards were, because depending on like what they were, I would be able to like time leap a card in my hand if it was a grade 2 or a grade 3. I could time leap to make sure I put back cards with tick away, but I checked like literally everything: damage, soul, hand, and drop zone, and the bind zone, and all of my grade 3s were gone, and all of my grade 2s were gone. So literally the only thing in my deck is 2 heals and a draw trigger. After I checked everything, just because you guys can't see, I'm explaining it to you. And so what we decided to do, obviously since we didn't want to deck out, is we attack for 18, he guards, and then we put back the Melum, and I don't get a card off of it because I choose not to search. Then I attack with Melum, put back a card, and then I attack with Vanguard, and I check 2 cards. And I heal 1, and then he takes the damage, but we decide to keep going as if he didn't, like as if he could magically guard it or something like that. What I should have probably done so that I wouldn't deck out here, because I have 1 card left in my deck at this point, like after I do those drive checks, which would mean that all he has to do is draw and pass turn, because like that's all it would take to win the game. But I was like counting on the fact that he would not survive that, and then as well, like it just was like a solid play to do what I did, the way that I did it. So yeah, that has been our Gear Chronicle GB8 video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Thank you guys for supporting. Be sure to check out the description below for all of our social medias: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. And like I said at the beginning of the video, there will be next week a $500 tournament at Wasteland Gaming in Georgia. So be sure to come out and check that out. And with that being said, this has been Josh, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.